Happy Wednesday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arch channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Today, we have an update on a Searchlight case that unfortunately became a brain scratch, a missing person who would later, their remains would be found. And for this update, it really asks a very tough question. How far would a family go to protect one of their own who's committed a murder? This is the thumbnail for the original episode we did on Searchlight. Trevon Perry, missing from Paso Robles, California, last seen March 15th, 2020. Just for a little reminder, of course, I'll have the whole episode in the description box down below. Trevon Perry's family initially reported him missing on March 16th, 2020. Within days of his disappearance, law enforcement began to investigate the matter as a possible homicide. An intensive, multi-agency, months-long investigation followed. On June 20th, 2020, Mr. Perry's remains were discovered buried in a backyard of a relative of the suspect in Riverside, California. Who is that suspect? This man right here, Nicholas Christopher Ron Jr. Ron was charged with murder, and 9 others, including several of Ron's family members, were charged as accessories to the murder for their varying roles in concealing the crime. 9 others, 10 people in total that would get some form of charge around this case. Over at the San Luis Obispo County website, they have the official announcement here. District Dan Dow announced today that Nicholas Christopher Ron Jr. has pleaded guilty to the March 15th, 2020 first-degree premeditated murder of Trevon Perry. Ron also admitted that he personally used a firearm in the commission of the murder. As a result of his guilty plea and admission, Ron will be sentenced to 28 years to life in state prison. The sentencing hearing is scheduled for April 12th, 2022. So it hasn't quite happened yet, but obviously he's admitted to guilt. Looking at this situation here, I mean, we have Trevon go missing in San Luis Obispo. He's found in Riverside. We're talking hours away, possibly it's got to be at least 100 miles, 150 miles away, something like that. Actually pulling it up, it's over 240 miles away, over a 5-hour drive. And then keeping in mind, we've got 9 accomplices with this as well. I don't think that sentencing is going to go light. I'm pretty sure we're going to see the minimum 28 years and possibly life. In particular, when you get into some of the details here, this was just a really, really nasty situation. Now, some of you might not remember, but Trevon actually was testifying in a case, going off memory here, but I believe they had a court date that was coming up, and it was literally the day before the court date that Trevon goes missing. Over at Calcos News, at a San Luis Obispo County Superior Court hearing in 2021, 2 of Ron's relatives testified against him. Both of the relatives struck deals with prosecutors, allowing them to serve probation instead of receiving prison sentences in exchange for their testimony. So of all those accomplices, it looks like we have a couple that flip. The first relative testified he received a single text message from Ron on March 16th asking for help to, quote, get rid of something. The relative of the murder defendant then agreed to assist Ron. The relative testified that he helped Ron try to dispose of Perry's body in Paso Robles, but the effort did not work. The man then drove with the second relative to Riverside, where several of Ron's family members live. Ron followed behind them in a separate car. You might be surprised to know that second relative in Riverside was Ron's grandmother. They took Trevon's body to Ron's grandmother's house. The first relative said he thought he was helping dispose of a weapon until the second family member told him during the drive to Riverside that he thought there was a body in the trunk. More details that came out through the court hearings here. So as I mentioned, 9 other people have also been charged in connection with the murder, many of them family members of Ron. Marie Holquin, Nicholas Ron's mother, was also charged with witness intimidation. his mother charged with witness intimidation. Nicholas Ron and Mario Rostro, who are cousins, are alleged to have been drinking with Perry at Perry's home from the evening of March 14th, 2020 through the early morning hours of March 15th, 2020, according to court documents. Ron apparently killed Perry between 3 and 4 a.m., with the murder occurring in a car that Rostro was driving. The car belonged to his girlfriend, so now we've got someone else that's kind of pulled into this, Heather Montgomery. Ron shot Perry in the back of his neck while inside the car at point blank range. Basically, Trevon's sitting in the passenger seat, Rostro is driving, and Ron is sitting behind Perry and just right in the back of the neck. Ron and Rostro hastily buried Perry's body in rural Paso Robles. They then drove the car to the home of his mother, Mary Halquin, in Victorville. So their first move was for him to go to his mom's house. 2 days later, on March 17th, investigators say Ron dug up Perry's body in Paso Robles and moved it with the help of Rodriguez, first to his mother's house in Victorville, then to his grandmother's house in Riverside. So then they took Trevon's body to 2 different family members' homes. Ron buried the body under a chicken coop at his grandmother's house with the help of his 2 uncles, court documents say. More family just heaping in to help cover this up. The car where the crime took place was burned and found in the desert near Halquin's house on March 22nd, 2020. Halquin allegedly helped burn the car. His mother helped burn the car and threatened to kill family members of Alberto Garzon, who is allegedly to have overheard her and Ron discussing hiding the body. So that's where that threat comes into play. 6 of the other defendants have already entered pleas in the case. Mary Halquin, Alberto Garzon, Mario Rostro, Heather Montgomery, Adam Ledesma, and Hector Ledesma all pleaded no contest to the crimes they were charged with. A no contest plea functions the same as a guilty plea, but it does not admit direct guilt by the defendant. Basically, they're probably going to receive a similar sentence that they would have if they would have said guilty. Rostro was sentenced to a 3-year split sentence, including 2 years in jail and 1 year probation. Montgomery was sentenced to 1 year of probation. Seems like she probably knew that her vehicle was used for something like that. That's the only reason I can think of for her to have a charge actually filed against her like that. Accessory after the fact, known as Penal Code 32, applies to anyone who helped someone hide or conceal any felony after the crime was committed. This could mean lying to law enforcement or hiding evidence. Apparently, law enforcement felt like they were lied to severely in this case. The problem with this Penal Code 32 is it kind of has strict rules about the maximum sentence that is allowed for it. And essentially, if you help someone with shoplifting, you could get the same sentence as if you've helped someone conceal a murder. So looks like we have a little bit of a problem there. I don't know how, if you're talking about these kind of weakened down sentences and probation deals and things like that off of that type of charge, it seems like that needs to be firmed up, because I'm pretty sure Trevon's family is looking for justice for more than just Ron. Yes, obviously, he's the guy that pulled the trigger. He needs to get a severe penalty. But a lot of family helped try to cover this up. And I think this, once again, just goes to the credit of the investigation. Can you imagine? Over 240 miles away, they had to have some really good intel, really good investigators working on this to track down those other locations, make sure they had enough proof to get warrants to go and check it. Really, my hat's off to law enforcement in terms of this find. And thankfully, now through the prosecution phase, Ron, we don't have to worry about some type of defense and him walking away from this, thankfully, because of, I'm pretty sure because of the great work by the investigators on this case. Trevon Perry's mother, Kelly Perry, remembers him as the type of son who never ceased to make us proud. Trevon was a father, son, brother, friend, and so much more, she wrote. He was the oldest of 6 siblings and always prioritized making sure his family knew that they were loved. Trevon was the type of child who loved and respected all his peers. He had friends in every group, never turning anyone away who needed a loyal friend, Kelly Perry wrote. After all the court proceedings regarding her son's death conclude, Kelly Perry told the Tribune she plans to connect with California lawmakers to try to change the sentencing guidelines for accessory after the fact. Please support her in that effort. I'm absolutely, I don't know what we have to do to get that done, but there has to be a difference there. There has to be a difference. If you're helping someone cover up the fact that they stole a car or took something from a store, there has to be a much stiffer penalty for hiding a body. And I know there's other charges. I don't know why we don't see some of those other charges in terms of moving a body, hiding a body. I think there's other charges they could have filed in this. I'm not sure, but I'm thankful that Kelly's going to get on that. I think that's really important. The crime 9 of the people involved in her son's death were charged with, of course, was being an accessory after the fact, and she wants it to better reflect the gravity of the offense that someone helped cover up. I couldn't agree more. I pray that no other mother will ever have to endure the excruciating pain brought on by such injustice, she said. So you can see it's pretty clear from how she's talking there. She wants all of them to pay for what they did to her son, which, how can you not? How could you not? So that is the latest on this case. Once again, I think this is an example of some really good investigative work that happened. And now we're seeing through the prosecution phase. They seem to know the story. They seem to have all the major players rounded up. It's just a question of, are the charges enough? Are the penalties going to be enough for some of these people? I don't know. From where I'm sitting, it doesn't quite seem like it. But what do you guys think? Let's talk about that in the comments down below. I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new episode of Searchlight here on the Lord and Arch channel.